I lost everything at 19 because of my sister's lie. My father disowned me. 10 years later, the truth came out. My mother asked to meet. I refused to read the message. Hello. I never expected to write something like this. But after what happened 12 years ago, I feel the only thing left to do is share it somewhere people might truly listen. One false claim led my family to erase me overnight. And now, after all this time, the truth has surfaced. I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I simply want to explain how it unfolded. The night my life ended, without me dying, I was 19. My name is Hudson. It was one of those big Saturday family dinners. Uncles, cousins, grandparents, everyone packed into the house. My parents loved hosting when the whole family showed up. My mom thrived in those moments, speaking loudly and proudly about how united we were. My brother and I carried chairs out from the garage while Dad grilled outside. Then there was my adopted sister, Stella. My parents adopted her at 10 because they had always wanted a daughter. She was welcomed immediately, quiet, polite, and reserved. I taught her to ride a bike, helped with homework, and defended her when kids mocked her adoption. To me, she was simply my sister. That evening, she seemed off. She kept fidgeting and barely touched her food. I assumed she felt sick or tired. After dinner, when everyone gathered in the living room, she suddenly stood up, shaking, and said she had something to share. I remember the sound of her voice. It trembled as if she were about to cry. Then she said, "Hudson, he made me do it." At first, I didn't understand. The room went silent, except for the ticking clock. My mind couldn't process her words. I thought maybe it was a misunderstanding or a bad joke. Before I could speak, she added, "I'm pregnant." My father's fist hit my face before I could react. Everything flashed white. My ears rang as I fell. My mother began sobbing as though someone had died. My brother stood there, shaking his head. "What is wrong with you, Xavier? You're disgusting." I didn't, Dad. I tried to speak, but another punch cut me off. With fury in his eyes, my father shouted, "You sick bastard! This family is ashamed of you." Stella was crying in my mother's arms. "It's okay, sweetie. You're safe now," my aunt whispered as she held her close. My brother stepped forward and spat near my shoe. "Get out," he said. I looked at the faces I had known my entire life. Not one of them saw me as family anymore, only with disgust. "She's lying," I said, my voice breaking. "I swear on my life." No one listened. I think my uncle called the police while my mother shouted, "Don't even say her name. Don't talk to her." I sat bleeding on the porch when the officers arrived. One asked if I was the suspect. My father nodded without looking at me. They didn't even cuff me. I looked half-conscious already. Still, sitting in the back of the patrol car with the sirens on felt like being buried alive. At the station, they asked questions I could barely process. What time did it happen? What did you do? Did she resist? I kept repeating that nothing had happened, not once. There was no evidence. By morning, they released me. I heard one officer mutter "statutory case" under his breath. Stella was 18, I was 19, only a year apart, but they still followed every required procedure. They checked phone records, called social services, took statements. In the end, there was nothing. They told me to stay available for further questions and sent me home. But by then, the damage was done. We lived in a small town. By sunrise, half of it believed I was guilty. I didn't go home right away. I walked until my legs gave out. When I finally returned, my belongings were piled on the lawn. Books, clothes, my backpack. My father stood by the door like a guard. "Leave," he said. No anger this time, just cold certainty. "You're done here." "Dad, you know me. I would never—" "Don't call me that. You're not my son." I reached toward my mother, but she held Stella tightly and turned away. My brother slammed the door behind them. I stood there shaking, struggling to lift my bags. That evening, my phone rang. It was my girlfriend, Aurora. We had been together for a year. She knew me better than anyone. "Jack, I believe you," she whispered through tears. "I really do, but my parents won't let me talk to you. They think it's true. They said they'll call the police if I see you again." "Please don't do this," I said. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I can't lose them." The call ended. I never heard her voice again. That night, I parked behind a gas station 3 towns away. Rain slid across the cracked windshield. In less than 12 hours, I had gone from a normal kid with a family, a girlfriend, and plans to someone seen as a criminal. Every pair of headlights made me tense. I thought my father might show up to finish what he started. No one came. At sunrise, I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Bruises covered my face. Blood stained my shirt. That's when I understood something clearly. No one was coming to help me. I hadn't just been thrown out, I had been erased. That realization sat heavily on my chest as I drove with no destination. I had $250 in my wallet, a rucksack, and the clothes I was wearing. I kept driving until the gas light turned on. I didn't care where I ended up. The engine sputtered near a sign that read, "Welcome to Maplewood." I parked behind a row of businesses that looked half abandoned. I was cold and hungry. For days, I had survived on vending machine snacks. Across the street, a diner window displayed a help wanted sign. I stood there gathering the courage to walk in. When I pushed the door open, a bell rang. Behind the counter stood a broad man with deep lines on his face and a gray beard. "Can I help you?" he asked in a gravelly voice. "I saw the sign. I can wash dishes. I'll do anything." He looked me over, wrinkled clothes, dirt on my shoes. "Ever worked in a kitchen?" "No, sir," he grunted. "You look hungry." "I'm fine," I lied. He nodded toward the back. "Name's Jude. Sinks are back there. Start now. You'll get dinner after your shift." That was it. No paperwork, no questions, just work. The kitchen was hot, loud, and cramped. I scrubbed pots until my hands burned. My first meal was half a burger and fries left by a customer. I ate it without hesitation. At closing, I said I'd find somewhere to sleep. Jude wiped his hands and said, "There's a room upstairs. Not much, but it's got a bed and a lock. Work it off." It was small, barely 12 feet wide, with a stained mattress, flickering bulb, and peeling wallpaper. But it had a roof. The floor didn't move. I slept for 14 hours straight. In the weeks that followed, I found a routine. Jude rarely spoke, but when he muttered, "Good job," it meant more than any apology I'd ever wanted. About 3 weeks in, as we were closing, Jude sat at the counter reading the newspaper. "Kid, what's your story?" he asked. I froze. "What do you mean?" "Had a trucker in today. Said he saw your picture in a paper a few towns over. Something about family." My stomach dropped. I began to shake. "It's not like that. It's not true. My adopted sister, she made it up." Jude didn't raise his voice. "Calm down, kid. What people say doesn't matter to me." I blinked. "It doesn't?" He leaned back on the stool. "Everyone has a past. You're working here. That's what matters. Rebuild your life. Keep your head down, do your job. The rest will settle itself." It took a moment for his words to sink in. For the first time since that night, I didn't feel like a monster. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed later, staring at the cracked wall, trying to process it. Jude had given me a chance without knowing anything about me. My own family hadn't done that. One evening, I scrolled through my phone contacts. I wanted to hear my mother's voice. I hesitated before calling home. Maybe enough time had passed. Maybe they had realized the truth. On the third ring, she answered quietly. "Mom, it's me." A pause. "Hudson, I just wanted you to know I'm okay. I found a job." "Don't call here again," she said, her voice breaking. "Your father doesn't even want your name spoken in this house." The line went dead. I stared at the screen until it went dark. I never tried again. Weeks turned into months. I worked double shifts and saved every dollar I could. Jude started teaching me small skills: how to check a thermostat, patch a vent, fix a leaking pipe. "Learn to repair things," he would say. "It's how you survive." One night after closing, curiosity got the better of me. I searched Stella's name online. There she was in photos, smiling, pregnant, surrounded by family. My mother stood beside her holding a cake shaped like a baby carriage. Pink balloons read, "It's a girl." My brother grinned in the corner as if nothing had happened. My throat tightened. I shut the laptop when my stomach churned. That was the moment I decided I would never again be Hudson Winter. Something inside me shut down. I stopped trying to explain myself. I stopped waiting for anyone to come looking. The version of me they buried was gone. At the diner, I focused entirely on work. I arrived before sunrise and left long after closing. I learned to change filters in old air systems, clean grease traps, and replace leaking faucets. Jude noticed. "You ever think about learning this properly?" he asked one afternoon while I had my arm halfway down a clogged sink. "Learning what?" "Not just plumbing, bigger. HVAC, heating and cooling. People always need air and heat. That skill lasts." I remembered how he said it. I was tired of washing dishes. I wanted something permanent, something useful. A few weeks later, Jude slid a community college flyer across the counter. Night classes. I studied it in silence. You'd be good at it, he added. Pay what you can. I'll cover the rest until you're steady. No one had ever offered me that kind of support, not even my family. The next day, I enrolled. The first months were difficult. After 12-hour diner shifts, I rode the bus to night classes and fought to stay awake through lectures about coils and compressors. But every time I repaired something, when cool air flowed again or a broken unit restarted, I felt like I was rebuilding myself piece by piece. Jude kept pushing me. Don't just be good. Be so good they can't ignore you. By the time I earned my GED, I was halfway through the HVAC program. I started doing small side jobs, fixing vents at the diner, repairing units for regular customers. When my certificate arrived, Jude hung it near the entrance like it was his own child's diploma. Not bad for a runaway, he said, patting my shoulder. I laughed, even though the words still hurt. With Jude's help, I saved enough to buy a used pickup and secondhand tools. Eventually, I left the diner for a full-time position at a local HVAC company. One summer afternoon, a coworker named Derek was accused of stealing money from a client's kitchen counter. The supervisor was ready to fire him on the spot. I saw the panic in Derek's face, the same fear I had once seen in my own reflection. Check the vent, I suggested. Everyone looked at me. I climbed up, removed the cover, and found the envelope partially pulled into the duct by return air. The client had likely set it too close. Derek nearly cried. The boss apologized to the client. Derek shook my hand as if I had saved him. Jude called me that night after hearing about it. Good job, kid. You cleaned up more than air. That's what separates men from mechanics. That stayed with me. Years passed in routine, work, eat, sleep, repeat. It was steady and predictable. Still, sometimes at night, I felt like another life was buried inside me. One evening, while preparing invoices, I opened social media for the first time in years. My hands trembled. There they were, my family, standing around a birthday cake with a girl who looked about 12. My father's arm rested around them as if nothing had happened. My mother smiled proudly. My brother stood nearby, grinning as if he had never spat at my feet. The caption read, "Happy birthday to our miracle girl. Family is everything." They looked happy, untouched, as though they had never destroyed anyone. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. For years, I imagined they would fall apart without me. They didn't. They simply replaced me. That night, sitting in my truck after work, I made a decision. When I got home, I deleted every old account and removed any trace of the name Winter. I filed for a legal name change, taking my grandmother's maiden name, the only person who had ever shown me genuine kindness. Weeks later, my new ID arrived. I stared at it for a long time. The face looking back wasn't a boy anymore. It looked harder, stronger. That was the day I stopped running and started building something they could never take. 12 years later, I owned my own company, Winter Heating and Air. A few vans, 4 employees, and a loyal client list. We weren't flashy, but we were reliable. Life had finally leveled out. Then, early one summer, everything shifted again. I was repairing an old air unit behind a bakery, sweat running down my back when my phone kept vibrating. Hometown area code, unknown number. Twice, I ignored it. The third time, I answered, "Yeah, this is Winter." Silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. "Hudson." My chest tightened. "Who is this?" "It's Aurora." For a moment, everything around me faded. "How did you—" "I know I shouldn't call," she said softly, "but you deserve to hear this from someone who believes you." My throat tightened. "Stella was arrested." I blinked. "Arrested? For what?" "She accused another man of the same thing she accused you of." This time, he fought back. Hired a lawyer. During the investigation, she admitted she lied about him and about you. I leaned against the van, lightheaded. "She got pregnant after a one-night encounter with Asher, a local heroin dealer," Aurora continued. "When he disappeared, she panicked. You were there. Everyone trusted her. So she blamed you. It's all on record now. Your name has been cleared." For years, I had imagined hearing those words, but there was no rush of relief. Only silence. "I thought you should know," she said. "I'm sorry it took so long." "Thank you," I finally managed. "I'm married now. I have kids, but I never forgot what they did to you." "You were the only one who believed me," I said quietly. We spoke for another minute, careful, distant. Then she said goodbye. I sat in my van for over an hour afterward, staring at the steering wheel. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or shout. 12 years too late, but the truth was finally out. The call started the next morning. Emails, private numbers. One subject line read, "Please call us back, Curiosity 1." I answered. "Hudson," my mother's trembling voice said. I recognized it instantly. "Please don't hang up," she begged. "Stella told the police everything." I ended the call. "They hadn't known," she said. "They didn't realize. They had no idea. There was no interest in understanding." Later that week, a local newspaper asked me for a statement. I declined. I didn't want sympathy or attention. I wanted something better, silence. But silence didn't last. The next email came from my brother. He wrote that he had been young and foolish and hoped we could start over. My father left a voicemail. "Son, we just want to see you. We made mistakes." Forgetting a birthday is a mistake. What they did was a choice. Instead of replying, I began writing letters, not the kind they expected. No soft tone, no comfort, just facts. I wrote about the nights I slept shaking in my car, about the damp room above the diner, about Jude, a stranger who gave me shelter when my own family turned me away. Even writing their names made me uneasy. I described burning my old school ID, cleaning grease traps for leftovers, seeing photos of them smiling beside Stella and her daughter as if I had never existed. They didn't just destroy my name, I wrote. They took my home, my trust, and any peace I had left. Every letter ended the same way. "You didn't believe the truth then. You can believe it now." I never mailed them. I stacked them in a shoebox and kept them in my desk drawer. One evening, while reviewing invoices in my workshop, I looked around at the tools, the trucks, the company logo painted on the wall. I had built all of it myself. I had lost everything once, but this was mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt written by my own hand. Still, peace rarely lasts. Once news about Stella spread, the same people who discarded me suddenly remembered I existed. One afternoon, someone knocked on my office door while I was repairing a thermostat on my desk. "Hudson." I froze. When I turned, my mother was standing there. She looked older, smaller, as if time had drained her. Her hands shook as she held a foil-covered casserole dish. Gray showed at her roots. "I made your favorite," she said quietly. "Chicken and rice. You used to love it." The smell turned my stomach. The last time she made it was the night before everything fell apart. I stood slowly. "Why are you here?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to see you, to say we're sorry. We were wrong. Stella lied. We know that now. You're 12 years too late." She wiped her nose. "Your father, he didn't know what to believe." "You didn't even ask me," I interrupted. "You didn't let me speak. You threw me out and told me never to call again." She stepped closer. "Please, Hudson, don't call me that." She flinched. "You lost the right," I said, gesturing to the door. "You should go." She placed the dish on the counter. "At least eat it. Throw it out on your way." When the door closed behind her, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. 2 days later, my father showed up. I returned from a service call to find him leaning against his truck outside my office, as if he belonged there. He smiled casually. "Hey, son." I didn't respond. "You've done well for yourself," he continued, looking around. "Business, trucks, employees. I'm proud of you." "Get to the point." He shifted his jaw. "Your mother's not doing well. She cries every day. Maybe we should sit down, clear the air." I almost laughed. "Clear the air? You beat me. You left me homeless. You cleared the air that night when you said I wasn't your son." He sighed. I was angry. It was different back then. It looked bad. "So you hit first and never asked questions." His face hardened. "You don't have to hold on to hate." "I'm not holding on to hate," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm holding on to self-respect." "What are you doing?" I pressed a button. "Security? There's someone trespassing at the front. Red jacket." His expression changed instantly. "You're calling security on your own father?" "You're not my father. You're someone who chose to ruin my life." Within minutes, security from the neighboring building escorted him off the property. He slammed his truck door and drove away, shouting as he left. I sat at my desk afterward, staring at the space where he had stood. Over time, I heard fragments of news. My family was falling apart. My father had yelled at a supervisor at the plant and lost his job. There were rumors of possible charges. My mother rarely left the house. Neighbors said she wasn't the same. After learning the truth about the past, my brother's wife took their children and moved in with her parents. The image of the perfect family was collapsing. People say karma takes time. In my view, it arrived right on schedule. One afternoon, one of my employees, Kevin, walked in holding a small box. Boss, this was outside. Inside were dozens of letters, all addressed to Hudson Winter in shaky handwriting. No return address. I didn't need one. My mother's writing was unmistakable. I carried the box to the back room and placed it on a shelf above the storage bins. That evening, I sat alone in my office and looked toward the window behind which the letters were stored. I imagined what they contained: apologies, explanations, maybe even Bible verses about forgiveness. Forgiveness is easy to preach when you've never slept in your car wondering why no one believed you. I didn't want closure, I wanted distance, so I kept every envelope sealed. Forgiveness would have eased their guilt, not my pain. They didn't want me back, they wanted relief. I chose not to give it. I was erased once, I said quietly to myself. Now I remove them permanently. I believed that was the end, the conclusion. But the past has a way of returning. 3 months later, I received another letter, plain white envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Stella Winter has requested to meet with you at Maple Ridge Correctional Facility. I stared at it for a long time. Her name looked strange on paper, as if it no longer belonged in my life. I threw it in the trash, took it out, threw it away again. Still, the thought stayed. For 12 years, I had imagined what I would say if I ever faced her again. Maybe it was time to find out. So I got in my truck and drove toward the facility. I drove to the prison a week later. It was 2 hours away, isolated in the middle of nowhere. After the front desk guard scanned my ID and buzzed me through, I was led into a gray visiting room that smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. I sat at a metal table, palms flat against the surface. Around me, people spoke in low voices. Parents, spouses, children, visiting someone they still cared about. I wasn't there for that reason. Then she walked in. I barely recognized her. She looked thinner, almost fragile. Her face was pale and tired, her hair pulled back tightly. The girl who once cried in front of our family, holding her stomach and calling me a monster, now looked like a shadow of herself. She sat across from me, eyes dropping to the table. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I didn't respond. "You look different," she added after a moment. "Older." "You look guilty," I said, her eyes filled with tears. "I deserve that." "No," I replied calmly. "You deserve worse." She nodded slowly. "I know, I'm sorry for everything." "For lying? For destroying my life? For all of it?" I asked evenly. "Why me?" Her voice shook. "Because you were safe, you were quiet, you never fought back, I knew everyone would believe me. You were the good one, the easy one, and I panicked." I leaned forward slightly. "You panicked, so you destroyed my life. You panicked and turned your own brother into the villain." She trembled. "I didn't think it would go that far. I thought you'd deny it, people would forget, and I'd get sympathy until I figured something out." "Sympathy," I repeated. "You got a house full of support, parties, protection, while I slept in a car behind a gas station." She covered her face. "I know." She forced herself to continue. "Asher was the one who got me pregnant. He was a dealer. It happened once. When I told him, he laughed and disappeared. I didn't know what to do. You were there, so I blamed you." I stared at her. I wasn't even angry anymore, just empty. "You took everything from me," I said quietly. "My family, my girlfriend, my name. You made me into something I wasn't. You made it hard to trust anyone again." She wiped her nose with her sleeve. "I think about you every day. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face from that night." "Good," I said. "You should." She looked up, desperate. "There's my daughter." I didn't react. They never told her the truth. Mom said changing the story would confuse her, so she still believes it was you. Even after everything had been exposed, the lie continued. "They say she's too young to understand," Stella went on. "Admitting they were wrong would reopen everything. She asks about you sometimes. She's seen old pictures." That hit harder than anything else. A child growing up believing the same false story that ruined me. My chair scraped as I stood. A few heads turned. "You don't get to put that on me," I said. "You don't get to hand me that now like it's mine to fix." She reached out slightly. "I'm sorry, Hudson. I can't undo it. I just needed you to know." I looked at her. There was no relief, no closure, just the end of something that had already died. "You took 12 years from me," I said. She sobbed. "I hope you never forgive me. I deserve all of it." "You do," I replied. Then I turned and walked out. The guard buzzed the door open. I stepped into the parking lot, got into my truck, and sat with my hands on the wheel. I thought I would feel victorious after seeing her. I didn't. There was no triumph, only exhaustion. When the truth finally comes out, it doesn't repair everything. Some cracks remain. But as I started the engine and drove away, I realized something important. Walking away without forgiveness, without anger, just walking away, that carried its own strength. For the first time, I felt settled. A year passed after that visit, and life began to steady itself. I sold my small house and bought a better one just outside the city. It wasn't extravagant, 3 bedrooms, a gated yard, but it was mine. Every wall had been paid for with my own effort. There was someone else, too. Quinn was introduced to me by a client. She was a graphic designer hired to redesign my company logo. She had a calm presence. At first, I had no plans to date anyone. But a year into our relationship, she said, "Whatever happened before, you're not that person anymore." She never pushed too hard about my past. I adopted a rescue dog named Max. She moved in with her cat. Between the 3 of us, the house felt alive for the first time. Work, peace, Quinn, Max. Then one morning, another envelope arrived without a return address. My stomach tightened as I opened it. I expected another apology from my family. Instead, the name inside stopped me. Hunt Lucas. Stella had accused a second man. His letter was clear and direct. "Mr. Winter, I'm filing a civil lawsuit against Stella for defamation and emotional damages. You deserve justice as well. My attorney believes your testimony would help both of us. If you're interested, call me." I read it twice. That afternoon, I called him. We met at a coffee shop the next day. He was a few years older than me. He shook my hand firmly. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" he said. "Yeah," I replied, but we both made it through. When he asked if I wanted to join the case, I didn't hesitate. "I'm in." The lawsuit took months, but this time I wasn't hiding. I showed up in court. I sat across from Stella again and spoke clearly, calmly. I didn't look at my family when I testified. The attorneys laid out everything, the lies, the damage, the repeated false accusations. When the judge delivered the ruling, the courtroom fell silent. As I walked out, I felt lighter than I ever had. My name was officially cleared, not just legally, but publicly. Words like justice and vindication replaced shame. Then the voicemail came. It was nearly midnight. I was finishing invoices when my phone buzzed. Hometown area code, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, a long pause. Then my father's voice. "Your mother found this number online. I don't know if it's still right. She doesn't have much time. The doctors say it's stage 4 cancer. She doesn't want anything. She just wants to see you once more. Please. I'm sorry. I was wrong." I sat there staring at the phone. I played it again. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger, not out of revenge. Just clarity. I remembered the night he hit me, the look in his eyes when he told me I wasn't his son. I remembered sleeping in my car, tasting rain and blood. He made his choice back then. Now I was making mine. "They threw me out into the cold," I said quietly to myself. "Now I fix other people's air." There's irony in that, and peace. They erased me once, I rebuilt myself, and this time my story ends on my terms. Steady, quiet, and finally my own.